testing. to support energy efficiency investments. Who's taking the lead on?
That would be me,
Okay.
Michael Dean, on behalf of the staff of the Maryland Public Service Commission.
Okay.
Commissioners, Chairman, in 2024, House Bill 864 was enacted as Chapter 539, and part of that legislation added Public Utilities Section 7-228, which directs the Commission to require gas and electric companies to adopt through regulations to post information on federal and state rebates, tax credits, and incentives used to support energy efficiency investments and for energy efficient and non-fossil fuel powered appliances and cooking equipment, breaker box upgrades, and portable heating and cooling equipment, items not normally covered under the Empower program. The Commission, in order number 91175, directed staff to submit proposed regulations, which we did through filing. And we proposed regulations in the electric section and the gas section of the COMAR. Electric utility and gas utility sections, which were docketed as rulemaking 88. As a result of this publication, the Maryland Energy Administration and the Office of People's Counsel filed proposed additions to the regulations. The Maryland Energy Administration requested that a section be added stating that utilities shall report any changes to the information in their semi-annual Empower reports. And staff has no problem with adding these to the proposed regulations. The Office of People's Counsel requested that both sets of regulations include direct customer notification of all the information twice a year through regular mail or electronic mail if requested by the customer. Staff would oppose this language right here, and instead we would suggest that the requirement be only that the gas and electric companies report or inform the customers of the location on their website where this information can be obtained, and not provide them with the list of everything twice a year. It could end up that this list could become quite extensive over time and actually add a few dollars to the annual bills, since this would be directly assigned, the cost of this would be directly assigned to customers.
Okay, is that everything from your end?
Yes.
Okay, so questions for staff, Commissioner Sussman.
Yeah, so, Mr. Dean, in terms of how the customer then would be notified, how would you suggest that the customer be notified?
Oh, this could be included in the regular bill inserts that are provided either through mailing of the bill or through their email system.
Okay, so you would have that be sent to the customer twice a year.
Well, they could note this information if you desire to read it. Could be on their direct them to the website. And it could be twice a year. Normally the utilities have a regular schedule through the year of when they discuss certain topics in their inserts. if this needs to be done twice a year, they could do it twice a year.
Okay.
But it would be on their website all the time for customers to read.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Litton, any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did have a question for, about the People's Council's recommendation. Utility companies send out, as you just mentioned a few moments ago, they send out a lot of notifications already. So, is staff concerned about adding an additional notification, or or would you be concerned or accepting if, for example, the language, instead of saying and, it just said or, so that the utilities could add it if they wanted to? Like, they already do some advertisement, so maybe they could add more.
Well, if we're going to put it in regulations, I would think that it would be a requirement to add it once or twice a year. It's not really necessary to put optional items in the
Yeah.
homework.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody? So, let me, just to follow up on Commissioner Linton's question. I mean, if they're already sending bill stuffers, is what we used to call them, information, why is it a problem if we ask them to specify at these two particular times, the spring and the fall, when it's time to, ability to make these improvements before you get extreme weather, either cold or hot, that they, to give us the assurance that this information actually will be presented to customers? Because I guess one of the concerns I have is, not everybody is going to be able to access the website. And so particularly for those customers that are limited in their ability to participate electronically, at least they get something in the mail and they can read it, it may allow them to take advantage of these things. So I guess I don't see the harm, is what it boils down to.
Well, staff's recommendation on changing it to just list the website was just recognizing that the size of the information may cause the mailing expense and everything else to be $1 or $2 a year to the bill.
I understand that, but I mean, and just this last winter that we went through, one of the things that happened was, and it was basically the horse was out of the barn, so to speak, but there was a lot of effort once all the furor happened about high energy bills. There was a lot of communication from the utilities saying, hey, here's the things you could do to improve your house and therefore lower your usage. So they wound up, dispensing all that information through a variety of mechanisms in response to the anger they were getting relative to the prices. And maybe we need to try and head that off by asking them to do it before, the bills come. Because, one of the issues that one of the problems we have with the billing system that's in place for this is customers don't necessarily understand how much they've used and what it's going to cost them until a month after they've already used it. And so, I'm sure that a lot of these people got this unpleasant surprise in January and February because they, used a fair amount of energy because it was cold. It was a normal winter. But at that point, they had already used it, so they had to pay for it. And so I want to try to have a situation where, we try to be more proactive to say to people, look, if you're concerned about being able to pay your bill after you've used the energy, maybe you should take these actions now to manage and lessen your energy usage before you use it.
Well, our recommendation was just an option for the commission to consider.
Okay.
It may be appropriate that everyone receive this information once or twice a year.
Okay. Okay. Any other? Okay, Commissioner Barbe.
Of course, now my old direct mail instincts are kicking in. Do they actually have a list of the people who avail themselves of the Empower program and cut them off the list so that they don't get a postcard? Do you know? In order to save money,
I don't believe that
they probably just mail to everybody.
they would just mail it to everybody. I don't think when contractors are out performing Empower upgrades using the approved measures,
They don't keep track of that.
I'm not sure that the utilities keep track of every single thing that's been done. In addition, this covers a lot more than just what's been approved before. There's a lot of non-Empower measures here.
Commissioner, you finished?
I'm just going to make a snarky comment about my campaigns. I'll forego that.
Commissioner Slushman.
Okay, and I will avoid any snarky comments as well. So actually, in hearing the chair's questions, I mean, ratepayers have complained about having to sort of go through websites and try to understand what is available. It would be nice to have it in one place. I guess my question is, are we going to give the utility the discretion in deciding how to capture all of these programs, or are we going to expect perhaps a review? Because we've done this before. We've reviewed other bill inserts because there've been problems, and I can imagine that there could be a bit of a problem in how this information is disseminated, because this is stuff that we want everybody to know, and even if people have access to a computer, if they're just given a website, they may not go. But if they're given a list of all the kinds of incentives and credits available, they may avail themselves of it. But some of it is going to also depend on how it's presented and what's presented. Because, I mean, how do we determine, for example, what tax credits should be put in a bill insert? Because there are a lot of tax credits, and so how do we sort of or federal, and what are the appropriate federal and state rebates, especially federal, which of course are constantly changing. So how do we go about making sure that this is actually something that will be of use to customers and has the right amount of information, doesn't leave anything out, or on the other hand, sort of overburdens the customer with too much information?
Commissioner, the Maryland Energy Administration's recommendation that changes to the information be included in the semi-annual Empower reports that each utility files. We could easily change that, not in the regulation, but as part of our directive, as part of this, is to require the gas and electric utilities to attach a copy of their inserts to the semi-annual reports.
And would that be something that the other stakeholders, OPC, for example, would support? Or, I mean, I'm just sort of looking through the list, and it could be hundreds of pages, depending on how inclusive we want the utility to be. But this has to be incredibly user friendly, because most people just throw the inserts out. So we want them, when they get the bill insert, to actually have value.
Yes, Commissioner.
Okay.
Hmm?
No, no. So,
I'm done.
So,
Okay.
like most customers, I open up the envelope, I immediately throw away the inserts without looking at them. I pay the bill, and then I throw the bill away. That's what I do. However, if there was only one insert and it had to do with Empower, and they did that twice a year, that might catch my eye if it were multicolored. Do you think it would be useful to actually have do a regulation where we say twice a year they can only have one insert and it has to be about Empower? Because that might actually catch my eye if it weren't like, it's usually like 2 or 3. I'm sure it's not 5 or 6, but it seems like that. I immediately I literally stand over the recycle bin, put it all in there. I have no idea what it is. But if it were only one thing and they did it twice a year, that might work without having to go to the expense of doing a postcard. What do you think, guys? I wasn't expecting you to answer that.
well, is it contemplated that this twice a year information they're going to provide, is it going to be just part of a lot of other stuff that they put on, along the lines of what Commissioner Barbie was talking about, that it's just one item and a whole list of items that they send people, or is it going to be, is the thought that this information being submitted in the spring and the fall is going to be more precisely attuned to just the efficiency grants and Empower?
Well, I can't speak for the gas and electric companies. I do know that in prior hearings, they have noted that there's actually a lot of things that are in the inserts now, safety material,
Right.
other things, and they expressed a concern about the amount of additional things that they're being asked to add. But you know, I leave it up to their discretion
Okay.
on how it's done. But they
So-
would be reporting it to the
Right.
commission.
So I'm always sort of nervous about being either overly or underly inclusive in certainly in a statute, but also in regulation, because you want to have the flexibility of being able to do things that make sense. Is it possible to have this language changed so that it would be a utility offering twice a year, but as negotiated by the stakeholders, because things can change every year, and there may actually end up being, new programs that are not rebates or tax credits or other incentives. Maybe, I mean, who can know? But it gives the parties the ability to actually agree on crafting something that is useful. Because otherwise, I think you can't put in regulations what it should look like. But I would imagine that the stakeholders would all want to have a role in sort of saying, yeah, that this makes sense, because it is for the ratepayer, and it should be effective. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it.
Well, we could certainly go back and at least request comments on this and how it should look.
Sorry, Ben Baker, Senior Commission Advisor. I just wanted to make sure, just to clarify a couple things. First, we are not talking about Empower offerings with these mailings. This is about additional
No,
program money.
I understand that.
But two, the utilities are already doing a lot of marketing for all their programs. Like I think everyone here is probably receiving a monthly, if not bi-weekly, email from BG&E about their Empower program or your home usage with an advertisement on that. And so that's just something to keep in mind. And third, the utilities do actually submit to us every 6 months in that semi-annual filing all their marketing material that they send out. It's in one of the appendices. So Yes, I think how you're describing it, where typically we let the utilities design the marketing material and they bring it, and then they go off and do it, and then anyone who wants to can go look through that appendice to decide if they have feelings about it. In this instance, if you want something more specific, we could certainly probably give it to the parties to figure out the details of what would go.
But
in
I'm
there.
assuming this is really to try to capture opportunities outside the Empower program.
Correct.
And since we can't know what opportunities are going to be available year by year, you're going to have to either change the language in the regulation or make the regulation broad enough so that it captures all the different opportunities.
Well, I think your one concern is this list here. That came straight out of statute. So that list of available federal and state rebates, tax credits, incentives used to support the following list.
Yeah,
that
well.
list is actually in statute. So they have to actually find. I'm not going to say everything, but they're going to have to find that kind of thing and put it somewhere and market it or tell customers about it. And so it's how they do it is something that we're like.
All right, so the list is the list from the
list is the
statute.
list, yeah.
Okay, and so now the question is, although I'm always sort of loath to put stuff in a list, because then the question is, well, is the intent to exclude everything else? But that's a different that's a different issue. So now the question is whether we should require it in electronic mail, or as the staff is suggesting, we could just direct them to the utility website.
Right. So I think, yeah, so the parties have given us, staff has promoted the utility website. No party has opposed that, though many have suggested additional tweaks. The direct mail and or email comes from OPC. And so those were basically the two options that have been put in front of us as a commission for your decision.
Okay.
But how they do it hasn't really been debated, it
Okay.
appears, based off of what was filed to us.
All right.
Okay, so let me turn first to MEA and get their comments on this. And my understanding is staff's okay with the suggestions that were made by MEA?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So actually, if you got anything you want to tell us, go right ahead, but we actually got some questions.
So I could just go through what we suggested.
Sure.
Okay. So we.
Actually, I need you to tell him who you are. So.
Okay. My name is Babatunde Idrisu. That's Babatunde. Last name Idrisu. Energy Policy. I'm from the Maryland Energy Administration. So, commissioners, we did submit a few comments on the proposed regulations. The first was we suggested that the information provided on the website is updated within 30 days of any change in the availability or the value of the incentives. So basically, we want the information to be up to date. And we also suggested that it should be presented in the format that is, the website information should be presented in the format that is approved by the Commission. Regarding the second part, the reporting, we suggested that if there's any major change in the incentives, that the utility should notify the Commission in writing within 30 days of the change and update the website accordingly. So those are the major requests we had for changes.
So actually, let me ask one startup question, and this has to do with the elephant in the room, which is, what is, to the best of your knowledge, the status of the federal incentives, grants, tax credits, things like that? I mean, is this disappearing or maybe disappear?
I think right now there's still a lot of uncertainty regarding a lot of the federal incentives. I think some of it's still being litigated as well. So we really don't know what the status of some of those federal incentives are.
Okay. Anybody? Commissioner Richard?
Just on your suggestion that there be direct customer notification, it just made me think about the fact that the utilities are pushing for people to use their apps, and also you can set up account on their websites. Is that something that and those kind of messages can be made, can be personalized? Is that something that you were considering contemplating in your recommendation?
That recommendation was made by OPC.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. I thought it was
Yeah.
included in your recommendation. So, okay. I'll.
Do you have an
with all the
opinion
question.
about it?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think of the idea? What do you think of OPC's
we have
idea?
we have no opposition to the idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Barbe?
No, I gave my suggestion.
Okay.
I'm done.
Commissioner Fleshman? Commissioner Linton? Okay. All right, so let me turn to OPC.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Portia Odro. Portia is Portia. Odro is Oduro. And with me is Miss Nicole Zigner. Staff has already given us a background for the initiation of the rulemaking process, and OPC appreciates staff's efforts for initiating the process and the proposed regulation. OPC's comments recommend addition to the proposed regulation to include direct customer notification of available federal and state rebate, tax credits, and incentives. Direct customer notification ensures timely customer awareness, promotes equitable access across customer segments, and increases participation in energy efficiency programs, which promotes state climate goals. Staff proposed regulation appropriately require utilities to post information about the available federal and state tax and incentives on their website. However, OPC proposes additional avenues, which is a direct customer notification, to create a more robust customer awareness, which will fulfill the General Assembly's direction, which is to promote energy efficiency investment. And this will also address the digital device concerns. OPC proposes to be included in the regulation direct customer notification by notifying customers in the spring and fall seasons of available federal and tax rebate, tax credits, and incentives by regular or electronic mail with the customer consent and commissioner's approval, and through customer portals, account portals. The utilities use mail, text, and emails and customer account portals. This should be done annually in the spring and fall season to ensure that customers are reached prior to the main heating and cooling seasons. For mail bills, a brief message could be printed directly on the bill or email or on the envelope. This method make use of the standard billing procedures and would not require extra postage or materials. For electronic bills, utilities could include rebate information in the email body or a clickable banner or an attached PDF. I use BGE, and recently I think this April, I had about 3 pages of information giving me energy efficiency, and these are the forms, these are already designated spaces for brief messages, and we believe that if this information is just provided on it, it can help customers to access this information. And OPC believe that this more robust promotion is important as direct notification ensures timely and widespread awareness of available rebates, which is essential for promoting customer participation. By requiring the utilities to proactively reach all customer segments, including those with limited access to the internet or email, the Commission will promote equity in the program access and address a lot of customers. When consumers are well informed and take advantage of the rebate and incentives to make energy efficient choices, such as upgrading their appliances or improving home installations, it will maximize the return on the funds and support broad state climate goals. And these individuals' actions taken collectively will contribute to energy efficiency and lower greenhouse emissions. And OPC also supports MEA's filing. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and we are open for questions. questions. Thank you.
So, questions of OPC. Commissioner Suchman.
Good morning or good afternoon. Have you touched base with the Empower Utilities about your proposal? I mean, in terms of with whether this would represent a heavy lift for them, or is this something that they already have information on and could easily be disseminated to their ratepayers? So, have you reached out to them for this proposal?
No, Commissioner, we've not reached out to them, but we took our information from the fact that this is already done. Information is being disseminated to a lot of customers, and that section or that space could be used to promote these rebates.
Okay, so I guess that'll be when we hear from the utilities. I guess that will be. I mean, if this is something they already do, doesn't represent a heavy lift, then maybe this is not an issue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. Can you just give me a idea of what you described it a little bit, but just an idea of what you envision this to look like? Because we've had some conversation with staff and a little bit with MEA that it would be part of what the utility already does, or maybe even on the emails they already send out. I believe in your notice, or excuse me, in your comments, you suggested they could send a PDF along with an email. So did you envision this looking like just a insert that's in the existing bill or something along those lines, or was this staff has raised a concern that it could get very voluminous? So what did you think it looked like?
So initially what we thought it should look like is when there is a bill, there is always, as I mentioned, BGE has this about 3 pages that they use to disseminate information about energy efficiency and other things. So it could be provided there. But we agree with Mr. Chair about making it also distinct biannually. We are just asking for 2 times in a year. It could be distinct in an envelope, and it could be addressed to customers, especially those who do not have access to digital devices.
Okay. So the staff also suggested that there could be a cost which would be allocated to consumers, of course. Is OPC comfortable with that, whatever that, I don't know what it would be, whatever that increase would be for customers having to cover that?
Commissioner, I think staff mentioned about $1 or $2 a year, and I think this is very reasonable looking at the high energy costs this year alone, and customers outcry about this energy cost. I think spending that amount of money to educate customers for them to be able to be alert to have these rebates and lower their energy costs, I think is worth it.
Okay. I had couple other questions, but that's really it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Commissioner Richard.
You heard my misdirected question.
Yes.
Did you consider also how we might use utility apps, and also when you directly sign into your account on the website, how that might could be used to educate consumers? And do you feel like if you did, the language you provided includes that type of a communication?
Yes, we mentioned that through customer account portals, and these are the ones that the utilities are advocating for customers to use more, and this customers can be reached out using the customer account portals, and the information can be given through the portals.
Okay. Yeah, I see that now, actually. It's not, for some reason, it's not on my copy. Thank you.
Commissioner Barbe.
All right, I'll take another attempt at this. Any thoughts on my suggestion that twice a year they should only have one insert in the bill having to do with Empower in order to focus people's attention on it?
That's a good idea. I think I mentioned it in my answer to Commissioner Linton about it. It makes it unique and stand out.
Yeah, because when I would communicate with voters, I would only talk about one thing, not more than one thing. It seemed to work for 32 years. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So along the lines of the questions I asked MEA, I mean, do you have any independent knowledge about the status of the various federal incentives?
I'm afraid that we do not, Mr. Chairman.
Now, MEA said, you know, to the best of their knowledge, it's pretty uncertain as to the future of these things. So I guess one of the concerns I have is if we ask the utilities to do a large mailing that's not electronic, that's just good old-fashioned paper, and if they spend time and effort and money just putting all that together, and then just before it's to go out the door, you know, the United States Congress does something to undo everything, do they then not do it and then have to trash all that? I mean, it seems to me the stuff they put on the website is easily changeable based on what happens, but to the extent we require them to do other stuff, you know, there's a longer lead time and the danger that, you know, they could be just, you know, having to trash the mailing because it's now, you know, no longer relevant. And how do we kind of deal with that?
Yes, I think that is a real concern, Mr. Chairman, and I think there might be a happy medium here. I don't know that we were necessarily advocating for, you know, a 10-page document. I think the happy medium might be little blurbs about the available programs and where the customer can either call, and I think that's very important, call or go to a website to learn more. We just want to help bridge the digital divide that exists in Maryland and of course throughout the country, and we want to give people a phone number. So we don't think that we necessarily have to have a huge list going to customers, which we realize multiple pages could get expensive, but we would recommend maybe a blurb on general categories of rebates. For more information, call this number or visit this number. And then I think, you know, it's hard to know what's going to happen, of course, with IRA funds, but if I was planning a home improvement project, I would want to know that they might be coming. So I feel like maybe we'll be like MEA's recommendations about having the commission approve this messaging. I believe that's because that's where we can all think, okay, well, this is the current status. Let's give a little update and say, although the status of IRA rebates is currently uncertain, for updated information, please visit. So at least customers know what might be coming. And then maybe there's a way to conserve funds in that way.
Okay. Well, Commissioner Linton,
Thank you,
go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman. I've been inspired by Commissioner Barves for a suggestion of other alternatives. So I was thinking here that one of the concerns that I had when I was looking at this was the potential that there are going to be some customers that will get whatever this material is, but they can't actually use it. For example, a renter. Because this is not an Empower program. This is something similar to it, but not actually the same. So a renter is not going to have any use for this. But I do think that some kind of more proactive outreach is a useful concept. So I appreciate the proposal you're making. So my thought was, what if we had something similar to that was smaller? It doesn't cost $2 a year. I don't want to see that, but something that was smaller, but it encouraged the customer to just say, hey, if you want this more comprehensive information, ask for it, and here it is. You know, and I don't know how you get it, email, mail, whatever, but I don't think it's worth sending to everybody because, to be blunt, everybody can't use it. If you're a renter, if you own a condo, if you live in that kind of property where you can't make a change to your appliances or something, then it's great information to have, but it's not really useful to you. So I'm thinking, what would you think about that as an option?
So Commissioner Linton, I think that's a very good point. I think maybe that idea of a little blurb describing broadly the areas of rebates or incentives available, and then having people call the number for additional information kind of strikes that balance. And there may be people who are renters who are planning to move into a home soon, and maybe it's worth that this being on their radar. But I do think that would strike a good balance, and there could be an option to get something delivered either by regular mail, email. I doubt they would want something that large by text, but they might. And I think that's a reasonable way to address this. Yes.
I don't have proposed language. That's just an idea.
Fleshman.
Well, and this goes back. I mean, and you could actually have. I mean, it could be a single page where, if you're a renter, and then there's information. If you're a homeowner, then there's this information. But I think trying to do this in regulation is a challenge. and it just seems to me that it's kind of better suited for a work group where you can come up with the language. So I think appropriate information about information about appropriate programs mailed, and then also on the website. And then the work group will make a determination about the kinds of information that needs to be in, because the information changes constantly. But it just seems like this is more suited for a work group to kind of figure out how it should be disseminated. What's the most effective way of doing it?
Yeah, that does seem reasonable to OPC. Commissioner Suchman, are you anticipating that a work group consider the proposed language twice a year in advance of spring and fall, and then the commission approve that messaging? Or are you envisioning that a work group get together now and kind of further discuss the text of these regulations?
No, I'm always one to go light on regulation, because it just gives the parties more flexibility with an expectation of what it is that you need to do. But I don't know that you can answer the question about what should be in the notice in a regulation. And it just seems to me that sort of going, I think it probably could just stay as is, just because Mr. Baker points out that it's from the statute. But I think that it would just seem to me that my expectation would be that a group just sort of figure out what's the most effective way of communicating this information to customers, and not overwhelm them. Because if you send multiple pages of something, it's not going to be read. I mean, that will certainly. So it'll be a waste of money that ratepayers will be paying, and it will be of no use to anybody. So we used to joke that whenever you went to Congress to give a piece of paper, that members were allergic to staples, so that it had to be a single page, and that's probably the best. I mean, if you can come up with a single page for ratepayers, that's probably the best way of informing them of what's available.
And Commissioner Suchman, I think OPC would agree with that. I think the nuances of how we do this might be best addressed initially in a work group and then approved by the commission.
Okay, but just circle back to staff. Because of the legislation was passed, we actually have to adopt some regulation, correct?
Yes, but the statute doesn't have a date that it's due.
Oh, I see. Okay. That's interesting.
One last item I should point out, the proposed regulation has each utility requesting permission from the commission if they want to use alternative communications like text. Is the commission, do you want to receive that request, or could we leave it up to the utilities?
Well, actually, I was going to bring them up, so maybe we can chat with them about that and sort of get some thoughts from them about the pluses and minuses of that. So,
Can I mention
sure,
something about federal rebates? So MEA is still in communication with DOE, and we do have a page on our website where we give like the latest information about the federal rebates. So
Okay.
that could be a useful place for anyone who wants to know the status of the rebates.
okay. Yeah, I assume you probably get a lot of information from NASIO about what's going on with the federal money. So, okay. All right, so why don't I invite any of the utilities that are in the room to come up here and offer any thoughts and comments based on staff's proposal, the filed comments, and anything you've heard today. So.
afternoon, Chair Hoover, Commissioners. Brent Balea on behalf of BGE.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Taylor Beckham here on behalf of Potomac Electric Power Company and Delmarva Power and Light Company.
So is there anyone in the room from Potomac Edison, WGL, or SMECO?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Josh McClelland, MCCLELLAND from Washington Gas.
Okay, so what? I mean, there's a chair up there, so you might as well just join the crowd. So. Okay, so.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. First of all, I just want to thank staff for putting together its proposed regulation and for all the interesting discussion we've had today and debates and ideas about how to implement this. I'll say I think from BGE and PHI's perspective that we're okay with staff's proposed regulation as originally proposed, and we're actually okay with much of what the other two parties have, not everything, but much of what the other two parties have also proposed. And we'll get into more details about that. I have some folks here that can speak about some of the concerns that we have better than I can and can explain kind of how our systems work, but also some ideas about how to get more direct information more directly to folks at the least cost. I will say, I just want to point out that I do have a concern that I think we need to be very careful about making sure that when we disseminate information to the public that it's consistent from a variety of agencies. So for example, I know that Maryland Energy Administration, one of its primary statutory duties is to kind of be in this space and to coordinate with DOE. And so I just want to make sure that whatever the utilities are promoting on their websites or through email or however it's done is consistent with what is also on MEA's websites and so forth. So MEA, I looked at their website today, actually does a really nice job of providing a very comprehensive list of all kinds of incentives that are available, including the federal incentives, and it is part of their statutory duty and responsibility to be in that role. So I would just caution and make sure that I think as we move forward that we're being sensitive to the to ensuring that messages are published in a way that are consistent so that we don't confuse the public. And so with that, I will stop and let maybe bring up some other folks to talk about some of the things that we have some issues with on some of the comments from staff, or not staff, but OPC and MEA.
Okay.
Unless you have questions for me.
Well, actually, I think, let me hear from the three of you, and then we'll move on.
Sure. Taylor Beckham on behalf of the PHI companies. And I would echo everything that Mr. Balea said. PHI is in line with that. I do want to just flag, and as we're getting into the conversation, I think, as Mr. Balea said, you'll hear from our team if you have any more specific questions. But there are, I think, some points as far as what is the utility already doing and what is the utility able to add on. From the PHI perspective, if we were to be directed to do a bill insert, that would be an added cost because we don't currently have like a newsletter that is already going out. So there's an added cost to do a specific bill insert related to the federal incentives that we're speaking to here. One thing I'd also add to kind of backing up Commissioner Suchman, I think you made a good point as far as the broadness of the regulations. I think what staff has already proposed kind of gets us to where you were thinking of going in terms of the proposals that the utilities need to promote these incentives, which is what the utilities do already do on their websites. And then the specifics may be being worked out in a working group and not particularly in the regulations. So I'll just pause there and turn it over to Josh if he has anything to say. But
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. WGL will be pretty quiet today on this front. We have not provided any comments or position on the rulemaking. We're not opposed to the recommendations provided by staff or the points that were brought up by OPC and MEA today. But I'll be available for any questions if you have any.
Okay, well, actually, let me start with one question. So, are there information that you're required to provide to customers because of decisions we've made that you already do on stuff other than the subject we're talking about today? I mean, I guess what I'm trying to, I'm a BG&E customer, and I get a bill insert at one point talking about safety stuff related to particularly natural gas and things like that. Is that something you do because we told you to do it, or is that something you do because it's just prudent to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. Let me check. It sounds like some of the things are required, like some
Okay.
gas safety, vegetation management through COMAR. So it may be a mixture of things.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So, and does PHI send out any bill inserts, or you just?
We do.
Okay,
So it's not like these are, it's a bill insert is a new concept for us.
Okay.
We do already send out bill inserts similar to BGE in terms of those things that are COMAR or required by COMAR,
Right.
but also at the same point as far as additional items that we may add. I think what I was speaking to particularly about an added bill insert, it would be something kind of what OPC has suggested as
Right.
far as an added spring and fall insert specific to federal incentives that are federal and state incentives that are available.
Okay, Commissioner Barbe, any questions?
Sure. What do you think of my suggestion of having twice a year, only one insert, having to do with Empower?
Well, it sounds like some of the things we put in are required by COMAR, so that may rub up against that requirement. I don't know.
Required by us, though, right?
Yeah.
These COMAR requirements, I think. Some of the things we're providing are COMAR requirements.
Well,
so
let's just say, for the sake of argument, that we waive those requirements so that twice a year there would only be a notice having to do with Empower. How would you feel about that?
I'd have to think about that, Your Honor. Like, I
Well,
understand.
don't
what
do
you're-
that. Nobody else does.
I understand that, we all get flooded with mail, right? And I understand that flooding people with more information is not helpful. But I think you have to also balance that against some of the other requirements. Like, it sounds like some of them are gas safety and vegetation management, which are also important that customers need to know about. So,
Well, but they'd be hearing about that 10 months out of the year, though, wouldn't they? I mean, it's not like we're completely eliminating it.
well, I don't know. I don't know what the COMAR requirement is off the top of my head. So,
Okay.
but I understand your, the concern there, because I get a lot of junk mail too. I think thinking about ways to most effectively reach the audience with the messages that we want them to get is what we should be thinking about.
I mean, the most effective way to reach an audience is with a postcard that only mentions one topic. I have a little bit of experience in this. But that's expensive. Sending a postcard to every household in your footprint is expensive. But it works. I mean, if you were to actually spend the money I actually got a postcard from Pepco just a couple days ago about the smart, signing up for the plan, to allow the meter to be I of course threw it in the recycle bin. But in any case, obviously that's too expensive. In my view, that would be too expensive. But to have only one insert in the bill, that might have I mean, it wouldn't cost more. You're doing it anyway, and so I think it would have a marginally better effect, perhaps.
So I'll just, sorry, for PHI, where there's already, and I think for both utilities actually, there's already an extensive marketing and email and postcard mailing campaign that is specific to what we're doing in the Empower space related to the programs that are already approved. I think separate, like a separate mailing, at least for PHI, in terms of, and this is the part about what we're already doing. PHI is not already sending out a bill insert related to these specific federal and state incentives. I would have to check and see if like the Empower mailing that we do or ad campaigns that we do include or can include additional information about these federal incentives and state incentives. But I think that gets away a little bit from your point, which was to be a little bit more targeted and having like this specific message related to these federal incentives. So that would be an added cost, as I understand it, for that specific targeted.
I feel like I'm going to have
message.
to actually start reading these inserts now, but which is a horrible thing to contemplate. But let me just say this: if I were to get a postcard or an insert and it mentioned 5 different things, I would ignore it. I just, I'm sorry, I'm not going to read 5 different things. If it's one thing though, and it's colorful, that would catch my eye, and I'm going to have to look at the inserts to see what exactly is in there. Ugh, okay.
Commissioner Richard.
Yeah, just one question. Being someone who does all my billing electronically and really doesn't often pay attention to things that come in the mail, I'm just curious, for your companies, how many people are signed up for electronic billing, or use the bill through their app or anything like that? I'm just curious how effective these type of mailings are these days.
I think I was just told it's about 60% for BG. Is that right? That
60% are everything electronic, okay, or through the your app.
I would have to check and get that number for the PHI companies.
Okay.
Same for Washington Gas. We have a relatively new online digital platform, so there's still a lot of onboarding with customers, but I don't have a number
Okay.
for you at the moment.
Yeah, in some respect, I sign up for a number of bills right through my my bank, but in any case, I'm just curious how we reach those individuals who don't really, again, pay attention to a lot of their mail. So thank you.
Commissioner Sushman.
So the concern I have is a concern I've expressed in other proceedings, which is that this proceeding relates to other things that we're doing, like Empower, and so if we have requirements that come out of each different program with a cost associated with those requirements, are we being the most efficient we can be, both in terms of communication and also in terms of cost? And is there a better way in which we can leverage the work that we're already doing in Empower with communicating with this as well? So I just worry that we're just, you keep throwing information out to customers and you're not coordinating that information, then you're not doing the customers any good, and all we're doing is we're spending more money. So all of this information needs to get to customers, but really what we're doing is we're engaging. This is really part of the behavioral programs that we're sort of promoting in Empower. This is just one additional aspect of that. And even if, so a lot of the stuff is not through Empower, but how do we leverage Empower with all the other things that are kind of available, get the messages to customers in the most targeted way? Because I think, to Commissioner Barbay's point, you probably have like one bite at the apple before they throw the stuff away. And so if you keep overwhelming customers with information, they're not getting the information. You're not being as effective as you could be if you just send them out one thing. And maybe that one thing is different if you're a renter versus an owner. How does this all relate to EVs? And so I'm concerned that we're sort of requiring this information through another requirement for another insert, but we're not really targeting what it is we're trying to get customers to do, and we're not coordinating this with spends that are already happening, because you're already doing stuff under Empower. Is there a way, for example, for this information to be sent out with behavioral information that's going out under Empower? I mean, you know, the last thing I want to do is to have more costs being imposed on the ratepayers, and we're not getting a whole lot more value. I mean, I agree with OPC. This information has got to get to customers, and it has to get to customers in a way that they can use it. I mean, a lot of customers still don't have access or don't have easy access to the internet. A lot of customers still do things by phone. So we want to make it as easy as possible for them to get the information that they need. But we don't want to impose an additional a burden on the utilities that will then be an additional burden on ratepayers for more money that's going to come out of their pocket.
From my perspective, I think what staff has initially proposed gets you there and is what the utilities are currently doing in terms of directing customers to the MEA website. And
No, I'm asking for something more. I mean, I'm asking, on some level, you're almost putting the burden on the ratepayers to kind of figure out how they can best do what they need to do. I would like to find a way of communicating to ratepayers the things that they can do to lower their usage, and whether it's, you know, it's tax incentives, it's rebates, whatever it is. Bring in the Empower programs that are there, other programs that are not part of Empower. How do we best communicate to ratepayers? If you say go on to a website, that's not going to do it.
well, so Commissioner Suchman, I do just want to, you know, we're talking about the promotion of federal and state rebates, tax credits, and incentives that can be used to support energy efficiency, investments in energy efficient, the whole list here. And that is specific to that. Those aren't items that the utilities administer. And so to the extent that we can direct our customers to the agencies that administer those programs, we can do our best, and that's why we agree with what most of OPC and MEA are suggesting
Right,
today.
I
I will just say,
Yeah, please.
when it's related to Empower, we do have a very robust marketing and direct mail, customer notification, behavioral notification program that we provide to the Commission with our semi-annual reporting, and that is for the purpose of letting the customer know how Empower can reduce and support customers, lowering customers' bills, and that's in the specific.
But you're siloing. You know, the customer is going to get information, and they're not going to say to themselves, I wonder if this is an Empower program, or I wonder if this is a federal or a state tax program. I wonder if this is. All they're going to think is, oh, I can use this to lower my usage. And if you have information that's going out based on the program, as opposed to based on what a customer can use, you're not doing the customer any favors. I mean, I don't want to, I feel like